Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. I can't believe we're here at the end of January, but we are wrapping things up with Lanie of True Crime Fan Club podcast and the We're All Just Pretending podcast, and it was my pleasure to have her on. We did record the episode back in November, so there might be some things that we talk about that are a little bit outdated, especially with TV shows that we talk about. But it is a great episode, and I am glad that you are here to listen to it. If you want, you can find us on Facebook at Tales from the Fandom, just by searching for us, or you can find the discussion group, which is called the Fandom of Tales from the Fandom. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and we do have a Patreon page if you're interested in supporting the podcast, but by no means are you obligated to do so. It's just for people that are interested in maybe getting like a free ebook or a free t-shirt or stickers, or getting some access to the episodes earlier rather than waiting for the release day, because I upload them to the Patreon site first. But you can find all those links in our show notes, so definitely check us out. Drop a review on iTunes, or even go on the Facebook page and do a review there. It does help just get a little bit of more visibility for the podcast, and that's always a great thing. And we've got a great month of February episodes lined up for you. I have Joey, a.k.a. Nomadic, from the Hexes and Bows podcast on February 5th. Joseph Seamson, a.k.a. the Daddy Gamer, who has a YouTube channel, but he also is on the Hexes and Bows podcast on the 12th. I have a special book trek episode with Victoria Avalor, who's been a guest previously on her own episode and the Wonder Woman review episode, and we talk about her book that she published last year on the 15th. We have Kristen from the Broadswords podcast joining us on the 19th, and then we have KP, who you might know as Salt Lake City's Green Arrow, joining us on the 26th of February. So we've got a great lineup of episodes, and there may be a few more that sneak in there if I get the time to do so. So enjoy this episode with Lanie. I hope you have had a good first month of January of 2018, and thank you so much for listening as always.
Hi, I'm Lanie, host of the new podcast We're All Just Pretending. It's a podcast that has elements of Dear Abby with a twist of Post-Secret. Every episode, I'll read listener questions and provide advice and insight as a friend. My own pod friends will even join in and offer their advice on parenting, relationships, and even give you really bad advice on purpose. Since we all have secrets to share, there'll also be a segment focusing on letting the skeletons out of your closet. If you're looking for advice or want to share a secret, head to allpretendingpod.com. And remember, we're all just pretending here.
And welcome to another episode of Tales from the Fandom. And this is a first for me because for those who listen to the podcast or know me, I don't really dip my feet into true crime unless it's like Silence of the Lambs movie or something on the news. But I am joined by my first true crime podcast host, Lanie of True Crime Fan Club. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. Very excited to be the first true crime podcaster you're talking to.
I know, it's so crazy because I've tried different true crime podcasts before, and it's not something that I get into. It's just not for me for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. It's okay.
And what was awesome is that you and I bonded over Twitter on something completely not even remotely like true crime related.
I need a break.
Although I'm sure, I can imagine in like 10 or 20 years, there might be a true crime episode on our bonding item, our bonding fandom that we have.
That's right. We're making history.
Yes. We'll look back on this episode and be like, we called it with somebody.
Right.
I don't know who, but we'll see. So we bonded over Twitter over a TV show on TLC called 90 Day Fiancé.
Yes. Magic.
Magic.
It's my
Pure.
favorite show.
Yeah.
My
I
guilty
don't know.
pleasure.
Yes, yes. I would go there. I would say it is my favorite guilty pleasure TV show.
Yeah. Actually, I don't even feel guilty about watching it. My husband hates that I watch it. But he will never admit this ever in person. But he one time said to me when I was watching it, he goes, "I know you're not watching this without me." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So you like this show?" And he's like, "No, I hate it. It's so stupid."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Now,
so it was great.
I I remember catching it. I think it was like on the original first season, but I caught it during one of those, I guess, times where they're leading up to the reunion, so they had it all, like they're doing a marathon of it, and I caught it
Oh
all in
yeah.
one sitting, and I was like, wow, this show is just wild because as somebody growing up, like, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that, I went on dating websites, and some
Hmm.
of them were for foreign dating, and I can't imagine, like, going through that process, of flying over there and meeting somebody and then having to, like, have them come back over on a special visa in 90 days, like you got to get married, like that's wild. And just seeing it play out between all the different couples was just fascinating, and I just had to watch and see what happened.
Yeah, that's how I was. When I think of people marrying foreigners in that nature, I've always thought of like Russian mail order brides and things like that. But seeing it on TV and it spans not across our nation, but also like the world. So people here are just, finding however they're finding them. Um, and going through this process, just like you said, I mean, it takes a long time for some people. These are 7 months to a year relationship that they're having just via Skype or text message. Some of them have never seen each other. Like one of the people we'll probably talk about, they didn't see each other at all until they first met, and I was like, "What? How do you?" I mean, you're falling in love with words, basically.
Hmm.
It's so strange, but that's why I love it because regardless of why they're doing it, they have this passion within them to seek out love that they feel they can't find anywhere else, and I think that that's sort of brave.
Yeah, it's just jumping into that unknown, but at such a level, especially. I mean, there's a season now that's going on, the current season that's airing, but by the time this episode will come out, I think it'll be over. But
Yeah.
just going there, not even having a language, like the same language in on either partner, whether, like, I believe it's English and Portuguese,
Oh my gosh.
and it's just so it's mind boggling
I
almost at a
agree.
certain level about that you need to make sure that, number one, your phone is charged and working, and that you both can use it, because it's just so, like, it's so strange, like, on that level. I can understand they go to the country, they're able to speak like Spanish or French or Russian, or the foreign person generally can speak English most of the time, but it's just so out there at times on these meetings, or not, like, meeting for the first time, and just, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. That the whole Paul and Karini situation, it is a dumpster fire to me. So I'm just like, I kind of like watching it burn, but then I feel really bad for Karini and not at all for Paul because he knows what he's doing. But Karini, I feel like she's, like I said, kind of truly falling for these words, even though they're not really his. So I feel bad for her. I don't really feel bad for Paul because Paul's kind of put himself in that situation.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Now, how did you get into watching 90 Day Fiance? Was it that you stumbled across it like I did, or just by, like,
I
sheer luck or coincidence?
I'm the luckiest person to have found it. It has bridged gaps between me and other people, which is amazing. No, I think I found 90 Day Fiancé because I already watched TLC. Like, that is my network for trashy TV. I was watching, like, Little People, Big World, The Little Couple, and then I saw this commercial for um, the 90 Day Fiancé, the very first one. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And they played, like, I think a preview episode during one of the either Little Couple or Little People, Big World.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I need to add this to my list. So I was so excited and I got ready. I like put it in my phone when the when the start date was. And I sat down and watched it and I was like, this is for me. This is exactly what I need because it's so like I sometimes get invested in these people, right? I'm like, I really want them to make it or like, yes. And some people I feel that you can tell who really is in it for love and who either on either side is using the other person just to have somebody or using them just to come over to the United States.
Right.
And which sucks because, you know, you don't ever want to think that that's what happens, but sometimes it does. And we are fortunate enough that it plays out on our TVs, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I think one of the strangest things is that while we are watching it, they're very active on social media too.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there are times where the things that you're seeing on TV do not line up with what is going on their social media, and I'm trying to like figure out like what's the truth, what's not the truth, what are they spinning, what's really going on, because I know that we had talked about George and Anfisa at some point on
Hmm.
Twitter, and the way that like they're represented on say Instagram is totally
Yeah,
different than what they were showing on
on
like
TV.
the reunion show and the meetup and everything.
Yeah, that was like complete opposite because okay, listen, I'm just gonna tell you now. I stalk them on Twitter, like on my personal Twitter account. I try and find them. I want to follow all of their accounts and just be like, yes, yes, yes. Even the fan accounts because somehow these people just like know things either because they've befriended them. Like I have a really bad story. Like one of them befriended Danielle.
Hmm.
And, you know, she seems kind of gullible and stuff like that and very trusting. So
Hmm.
they friended her and she shared a lot of like personal information with them and all this other stuff and things that went on behind the scenes. So this person created a fan account and basically started tweeting things that Danielle was saying. And now they kind of attack her and Beth, one of her friends that's on the show, a lot, and it's really mean. I think she got a restraining order on her, but it's things like that. Like I don't like things when people do things like that. You know, I'm like, okay, well then you're not a trustworthy person. I don't care if you're giving me the dirt, but I can't trust you, and nobody else should be trusting you. So things like that. But I follow them on Twitter. When I saw Anfisa, because you know they're like an enigma in the 90 Day Fiance franchise.
Hmm.
You know, they could literally carry their own show, which is I think what's going to end up happening. They're going to give them their own show. But she was very vague on Instagram, and then all of a sudden, like right before the reunion show was about to pop up, then all of these postings of them together started popping up. Right, they're at the beach, they're on the boardwalk, they're at an at their apartment, or they're snoozing and they're at the mall, you know, just talking to each other and having fun. And you're just like, this is weird. Like something's going on. You guys don't love each other like that. I was going to say, and then you see them at the reunion, like you mentioned, and they're like spitting venom at each other, hate each other so much. And George is like basically insinuating that she's a call girl and a stripper. And you're just like, literally last week you were cuddling her and walking in the mall with her and buying her things. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, it is, it's wild. And I was going through the list just now of all the couples that they've had on of the 4 seasons that are officially done and over with.
Hmm.
And out of the, let's see here, there's 6, 6, 12, 17. Out of the 21, okay, so they've done 21 couples in 4 seasons. And out of the 21 couples, only 4 are separated or divorced, which I'm really surprised about.
That's surprising, but that makes me happy. Like, some you kind of expect, like Danielle and Muhammad. I 100% called that in the beginning because I was just like, this union makes no sense. And then I think there's one couple, I don't remember their name, but they the guy got into a lot of legal trouble, I think, and I was just like, I'd get away from him.
Sounds like someone that's on the Before the 90 Days season.
Oh, I know. He's my favorite though, even though he's terrible.
do you have a favorite couple? Like, do you have? Okay, let me ask this first.
I have a lot of favorite couples.
Do you have your favorite couple that you root for to succeed and just be great for forever?
Oh, yes. Okay. I love Alla and Matt because to me, Alla was the most honest. Matt, I know, is in his, it feels like his 18th marriage because he's always just I was married 4 or 5 times. I don't know. But Alla was very honest. I think she understood the opportunity she was getting by coming to the United States, but she wasn't fake in how she felt towards Matt, right? So I think what shocked people was that she said, when asked by his brother, do you love Matt? And she was just like, no, I don't. I care about him a lot, but love takes time and it takes time to grow. And she was very honest, and I really love her for being that way. And and I think that they'll last because I think if she keeps that up, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. If she keeps that up, she will. I think Matt will appreciate that. But I also root for Paola and for Russ. I want them to succeed really bad.
And what's interesting is that they've been on the 90 Day Fiancé spinoffs, like the Happily Ever After and everything. And it still blows me away that they were a season 1 couple.
Yeah. Yeah. And that they're still having the same issues. I'm like, can you guys get over it, please? She's going to wear the short shorts. You need to move on.
Right. You knew who you were marrying.
Yeah. She wasn't going to change coming from Colombia, for real. She's going to be who she is. And that's what I think he doesn't understand. Okay. I'm Mexican. Okay. I'm headstrong, independent, all this other stuff. And my husband understands, realizes that, sometimes appreciates it. But I'm just you don't get to, I think when we get directions from men, or they hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. It's whoa, 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 whoa. Who do you think you're talking to? Why would you, you don't get to tell me what I can wear and stuff like that. I'm a strong woman. There's compromise, of course. Okay, if Russ doesn't want her to do nude photo shoots, okay, don't do nude photo shoots. But lingerie or the sport type ones, who cares? She's coming home to you. She has cameras on her 24/7. So it's not if she does something out of line, that it won't be captured and they're gonna use it, if it's juicy. So to me, he has nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's one of the things. And it would be different, say, if they had never met before.
Right.
And they had been just Skyping or emailing or FaceTiming or whatnot. But he'd been down there. He'd hung out with her and all that. That was the big thing, is that by this point you should know, I would hope.
Who knows?
Now,
I don't know what his problem is.
Now, how about on the flip side? Who's the couple that you're just you watch, but you it's a train wreck? And I've got to just exclude Danielle and Muhammad because everyone knows that. That's the standard. They're the standard bearers on that one.
They're the cheap answer. It's if you can't think of anything, go with them. Let me see. It's really just about who gets on my nerves the most. I would say right now, Nicole and Ozan. I like Ozan, but Nicole just seems very ignorant about things. I took a real issue with the latest episode where she, or not even the latest episode, maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, and this is in early October, I think, when it aired.
Mm-hmm.
But she had May call Ozan daddy.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, "Oh, look, it's daddy." And I have I hate things like that because I'm just like, listen, I had my mom was a single mom. I get it, you know, you're lonely and all this other stuff, but there's always this talk among single moms, like, when do you introduce a new man into your child, you know, your child's life? And I'm like, I feel like over Skype and then immediately that having them call them daddy is probably not appropriate, maybe judging, but I took a real issue with that. And the way that she kind of blackmails people like her family to say, well, if you're not going to sponsor him, then me and May are just going to move to Morocco. And I'm like, you don't use your kid as like a pawn, because it's clear that her family helps her a lot with May.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that at all. And so I was just like, you know, Ozan's a nice guy, you know, and he hasn't done anything to me that's rude, I guess, on the level that she has. Like, he's tried to understand and be accommodating, but she makes zero effort, and I don't like that.
Right. And not only that, I mean, and I think we talked about it on Twitter about she's so sheltered, I guess. And I feel like when I'm watching it and their interactions when they're in the streets of Morocco or wherever they may be over there, like I feel like Ozan's trying to protect her, because
Yes.
if she does the wrong things like publicly and somebody reports that,
Yeah,
like,
she's not safe
yeah,
at
she's
all.
not safe, and you're putting him at like liable as well.
Yeah, and May most of all. Like, I don't really care about her. I mean, when she was there by herself, then yes, of course, I care about her safety. But now she brought her daughter, and her daughter is less than 6 years old. And I'm like, you know, and Ozan says it, it's not anything derogatory, but he's just like, you know, this is a Muslim country. They're a little bit more conservative, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
he tries to explain that to her, and she's just like, what do you mean I can't grope you in public? What do you mean I can't kiss you in public? And what do you mean I can't yell at you in public? And it's just like, that's not how this society works, right? This is a male-driven society where he's going to dictate to you because he has to, you
Right.
know? Not because he's just like, oh, I want to have this power over you. He's not like that. It's just like, listen, this is how it is here. You're here. You're not in the United States, you know, where people can, you know, yell at each other on the street and it'll be okay. You can have a husband and wife fighting in the middle of the parking lot and you're just like, ah, okay. Nobody would be like, hey, I'm going to report this because this is against the law. And a woman faces, you know, some type of punishment or over it, and the man faces none. So it's just like, I don't like it, mostly because I'm worried about May, because when her mom dropped them off at the airport and she was kind of like foreboding and was like, I feel really bad about this whole situation. Like, I feel something's going to go wrong and I'm really nervous. I'm just like, oh my God, I hope that you are not like accurate about that at all, because when a kid is involved, it's just not fair to the kid. It's not their choice that you want
Mm-hmm.
to be in a relationship with somebody. So
Right. And we're
yes,
seeing
I
that not
feel
only,
strong feelings against Nicole. I'm sorry.
yeah, and we're seeing that play out not only with Nicole and Ozan, but with one of the newest couples that have
Yes.
two kids, and one of the teenager is very against the new guy coming in, and now he's in the house, and she doesn't want anything
Mm-hmm.
to do with it, and it's crazy. Like during his like interview segment times, he's like, "Oh, she's very disrespectful to her mother," and he's not getting it. Like, and you know,
Yeah.
I can understand where he's coming from, and it's like, yeah, okay, she is being rude, but you know, there's a completely legitimate reason.
Yeah. And again, he's from the Dominican Republic. So like the Hispanic culture, I'm an authority on it, just so you know. I'm just kidding. um, you know, you are expected to respect your parents no matter what. You know, your parent can talk to you however way they want to, but you are never to like disrespect them in front of another person or in front
Hmm.
of another adult or your elder or whatever. So the Hispanic in me understands where he's coming from, where he's saying, you know, like, you're being disrespectful to your mom. And it's not necessarily because you're Hispanic, but we put a lot of value in things like that, you know, because I have friends who were, when I was growing up, and, you know, you go through those teenage years and you're like, man, I can't stand my mom. They're like, you should just tell her this. I'm like, I don't want to die. Like, I don't want my mom to kill me. I just, you know, I don't like this. And you kind of have to just suffer through it. You know, whereas they would go and be like, Mom, I don't like this. I'm like, I would never tell my mom that. I'm sorry, I can't. I love my life. I like to live. So I get his perspective on it, but I also get hers because I've been through that, right? Like, my mom was a single mom and she dated guys where I was like, you're intruding on our family. Like, it's been just me and my mom and my brothers, and that's it. And now you're bringing this guy. Like, when you're a kid, you don't think that your parent needs a companion, right? You just think you're here for me and we should be all you need. And that's not how it works when you're an adult. Sometimes you need a break from your kids, and you either, you know, you want an intimate relationship with somebody, not just sexual, but also just to have a person there, you know, to be your companion. So I get everybody's perspective in that situation, and I feel for her daughter because I feel like she should sit her aside and say, listen, I'm not choosing him over you, because she didn't really do that. She just was like, what do you mean? And she tells her, and she's just like, oh, well, we'll go to New York. And it's like, that's not what she's concerned about. She's concerned that you're moving her down a rung, you know, on the ladder of your life. So I get everybody's perspective, and that situation kind of makes me sad.
Totally. And I, you know, it's just something where it's like, oh my gosh. And I know that there's times during the filming, and I think we have an episode coming up as we're recording this with Nicole, where she like is like, I'm done, I'm done, I'm walking out. And just, you know, it's real life, but it's here on TV too.
Yeah.
Now, just to wrap up on 90 Day Fiancé, Nicole and Azan, as of our recording, you know, we're still in season 5 and they're progressing through. Do you think that Azan's going to go through with coming to America? With Nicole. I guess I should stress with Nicole.
I mean, he has to come with her, I guess. I think he will, because he, like, you know, I kind of see this going like the Danielle and Muhammad situation, you know? I think that he will take the opportunity, but I don't know that he feels in love with Nicole the way that she feels with him. And I think he will come. I would be really surprised if he decided to stay in Morocco.
It will be interesting to see, especially looking back when this episode comes out, and I'll be like, oh, let me add on a tagline about what happened or didn't happen.
And you're like, Lanie was wrong.
One of the other shows that you and I are both into is not a reality show, and it is HBO's Ballers with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on it.
Yes. I've been a Rock fan since wrestling, so I love him.
Okay. How did you, like, I hadn't heard about the show until I guess like the first season had started, and I was like, oh, hey, he's in a show and let me check it out. And it's really good. Like, I think it's one of those shows where it's like one of those undiscovered gems almost.
Yes. Like, you wouldn't know he's in it unless somebody mentions it to you. That's how I feel. I found it 2 years ago, I believe. My husband, then my boyfriend, had gone on a business trip, and I was watching the dog, and I was like bored out of my mind. So I was like, oh, let's see what's on HBO. We were really into Vice, that news documentary show. It's so good. And so I was just like, oh, let me see what's on HBO. And then I come across this, and I'm like, The Rock, count me in. And so I started it, and I was like, this show is amazing. And when he got back, I'm like, I don't care. I'll rewatch the entire thing with you so you can see how awesome this show is. And we watched it, I think, last Sunday when it updated on our app. And we love that show. It's so good, and it's so funny. It's just like, to me, it's really hilarious.
Yeah, it has a like, there's just something about it, and I don't know, like there's the comedy aspect, there's the sports like like not sports political, but like the sports like the inner workings and what goes into like certain things, and just how it's very much almost it like I don't know, but like it seems very steeped in real life. Like this could actually be some of the stuff that's going on.
Right. Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
really liked it.
and there's a ton of great people that are in it. Like besides like Dwayne Johnson, like his best friend Joe Rob is like from Daily Show, Rob Corddry, and then the guy from The West Wing is in it, and there's two of them from The West Wing that are in it. The Larry Seifert during the Miami
What?
Dolphins, well, he was in it. I believe, yeah, I think Dual Hill, yeah, he's in The
Oh,
West
wow.
Wing, and then so was I can't remember his name now. I'm trying to find him on Wikipedia real quick. Richard
Go to
Schiff
IMDb.
as Anderson.
Oh, wow.
Because he was on West Wing too, and I loved getting to see them because they're in totally different roles. But I love like all the characters too, because it's not just like Dwayne Johnson's show. It's like him, but you get to learn about all these other characters around him. And it's just so much fun to like see what they're going through and what they're doing.
Yeah, and he's not even my favorite on the show in terms of like characters. Like I love Ricky Jarrett. He's so funny because he's just like now he's going through this whole episode thing with his brain and everything. I'm just like, oh my God, I love him. And his roommate, when he decides to leave for a little bit, and his dad's like, I think he loves you. I was cracking up so hard at that show. Nobody knows what I'm talking about, but it was really good if you watch it.
Well, my favorite character is Charles, because I feel like I just relate to Charles so much. Like, okay, like I'm not an ex NFL football player, but
Right.
going from NFL to car sales to scouting and doing stuff like that to almost getting to like that job that you're going for and then being told that you're not getting it, and it's like, wait a minute, what? Like,
Oh,
what do you mean?
I know. That broke my heart for him because he was just like, ha, gotcha, Seifert. And then they're like, so yeah, we're going to get the new head coach and maybe you'll be here, maybe you won't. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah, that
really-
was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what because this season was totally bonkers because they went in a completely different direction with the whole like, oh, let's move a franchise or whatever.
Yeah,
and
that was a little
cool.
strange.
It is totally way out of the realm of what I thought that they were going to do, and now I'm curious to see what they've got for next season.
Yeah, I was really disappointed because I was hoping they would stay in Oakland. I was like, yeah, and then they kind of got one over on them eventually. But I'm glad at the end he was kind of like, no, we're doing things my way, and I was like, that's the Spencer I know.
Yes, Spencer Strathmore.
Yes, I love that show. It's such a good show.
Yeah.
So he kind of boggles my mind a little bit, right? Because he's supposed to be, or he kind of exudes this air of confidence and just like self-secure and everything. And then he has these little moments like being able to have kids, which he's never expressed interest in. And then all of a sudden it's this, well, now I need to do this. This is my life's mission.
Right.
I'm just like, Spencer, can you figure your life out for a little bit? I don't think you need kids. You won't be able to be hopped up on pills if you have kids.
Right. You won't be able to go out on the yacht or do all these parties and everything else.
Yeah, you can't take your kids around drugs.
Yeah, definitely not.
Would not advise to do something like that with your small child.
Yeah, it's a great show. So if you're not watching it, it's only 3 seasons right now. I think they're only like 10 episodes, and they're not long. I think they're like 28 minutes or 30 minutes, and you can really go through the whole series that's out really quick. And I know 4th season comes out sometime next year.
Right. You have time to catch up, people.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it because I remember when they ended the first season, there was talk about maybe the NFL was going to sue them for usage of like, the Dolphins and actually using real football teams and stuff. But everything seems to be okay, and we just keep going forward with a great show.
Yeah. I mean, the NFL needs all the help it can get, really, with the publicity lately. So I think they should be thankful to Ballers.
Yes, there you go. Be thankful to the Rock and everyone involved in that show.
The Rock saves everybody, don't you know?
Next time on 90 Day Fiancé, couples counseling with The Rock.
The Rock, and he's like, what was his like jabroni or whatever? It's like,
yes.
Come on, man, don't be a jabroni. Give her the 300,000 baht. Or 500,000. That, oh my God, I'm so upset about him. I feel so bad. I'm like, this dude doesn't even have one baht. Like, he cannot come up with 500,000 baht. I'm sorry.
The thing that got me on the last episode, I don't know if you've seen it, when they went water buffalo shopping.
No, I can't wait. That's up next.
Oh my gosh.
I just feel like so bad. I just like, weren't you the one who said the thing about Craigslist? Where you were like,
yes.
You can just buy one on Craigslist. It's like,
yes, like, do they not have Craigslist in Thailand? Like a Thai Craigslist? Because
listen, with all the things that go on in Thailand, I don't think that Craigslist is a great idea. I feel like the government's probably like, listen, guys, let's shut down Craigslist.
Yeah, that Thailand
Probably
seems like it would pose a lot of problems.
Yeah.
With stuff of that nature.
Yeah, especially Craigslist. It's like water buffalo or something lascivious. I don't know. I feel so bad for him because I'm just like, why are you on TV right now talking about how poor you are? And you're literally, I don't know how or why his best friend ended up flying out there, but I was like, you are not about to hit your friend up for money. And the wife is just like, yeah, he's going to ask us for money later. And then he ends up doing it. And I was like, oh my God, dude, why are you over there? Like, wait a little bit, save up some money. Why do you need to be over there right now and put yourself in the hole? Like, I don't even know. You like 500,000 baht is what, $1,500 converted, I think is what they said. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you don't have $1,500 saved up somewhere.
Well, I don't understand what he's doing. Like, I know that he had, he went through a divorce and a rough patch and everything, but I don't even know if he's working.
Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, where are you living? Where are you going to go when you come home? I don't know. Yeah. It's really weird. His whole situation, he weirds me out. I'm just like, what is going on? What's happening?
Yeah, it's very confusing. And I almost wonder why he's not like on the 90 day, like the before the 90 days, because he's not. Yeah. But again, like Azza and Nicole aren't on like that track either with doing the visa process. So I don't know.
I think they just didn't fit anywhere else. So they were just like, we're going to put you on 90 Day Fiancé. And then I think Azza and Nicole will end up going to Happily Ever After, because I hope to God they don't bring Danielle back. They don't have a storyline anymore. They hate each other. We get it. We don't need to see it anymore. It's over and it's done.
Yes. Please don't have them come back.
I hope they don't. Like Georgie and Anfisa, I won't mind. I don't like Pedro and Chantal.
No, I don't like Pedro. I mean, I
like
personally,
Pedro.
You like Pedro?
What? Sometimes. I just thought about that. I was like, well, no. Oh my God. I don't know. Sometimes I do, because sometimes, like I said, I understand some pieces, but like when your mom, who's a lawyer, asks you to send her a giant TV and you literally are just going to pay hundreds of fees in mailing to send it to her, I'm like, why don't you just give her the money to go buy her own TV over there? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And then the whole like serving of food that you don't eat, but you're trying to serve it to.
She was being salty. That's what she
Yeah,
was doing.
she's
I saw that. I saw right through that. I was like, we will lie to you, okay? When we're trying to get one over on you, we will lie, okay? And that's why I was like, they don't eat chicken feet. Are you kidding me? I was like, yeah, right. They were trying to be like, here, eat this. You're stupid. So yeah. But Chantal's family was just as just as bad. They were the fact that I took a big issue with the fact that when they went to go visit his grandmother and they didn't get out of the car and they just stood in there,
Mhm.
sat in there or whatever. I was like, that is so freaking rude. Like, I don't care if you're going to eat the food, don't give a crap. But this is, again, this is my Hispanic culture. So this is an old lady. Like, you need to go out. And my mom always taught me, it's just like, whenever you go to anybody's house, you walk around, shake their hands, and then just like sit down and shut up, pretty much. So, like, shaking hands is a normal thing for me. Like, I've done that since I was like 4 years old. And so people found it really weird because I'm like, hi, nice to meet you, shake your hand. Most people don't do that anymore for some reason. But I was just like, at least get out, shake their hand, introduce yourself. Don't be disrespectful, because sitting in there like that, they're not ever going to forget that. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's very, to me, that was really upsetting, because I was just like, really? You can't put it aside for maybe a minute or two and just go introduce yourself and say, oh, I'm not feeling well, and then go back to the hotel or whatever? Like, why would you make the 2-hour drive? Period. You
Yeah.
knew they were in a ranch, so why would you go?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm
And
at with them.
and I'm surprised that they weren't made aware of it. I mean, I know that they don't have like the greatest relationship, but
Hmm.
wouldn't Pedro have been like, "Oh, look, here's pictures of where we used to live," or here's
Yeah,
something that shows like this is what you're going to be encounter. Like there should have
right.
been some prep work on that side of like, "Hey, this is what you're going into."
Yes, and he's also told Chantal where he's lived before and what the conditions were. And that's why I'm like, okay, she had some obligation on her end to be like, okay, just so you know, it's probably going to be like this. Because I'm like, I can't imagine that Pedro would have never, ever, just kept that from her. I have a feeling
Mm-hmm.
he probably would have been like, yeah, this is where we lived, blah, blah. Just like you said. So I, I know that was made for TV, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting things on that show. Now, I wanted to talk to you. You not only have one podcast, but you have two podcasts. So I
I
want to talk
do.
to you first about. I guess I don't want to call it like your main one, but the one that
It's my
I
main
most
one.
okay, the one I most know you for, and that is True Crime Fan Club.
Yes,
Now,
that is
how
my
did you
favorite show.
how did you decide to start a podcast, and specifically like a true crime podcast?
Okay, so I have been a true crime junkie since I was about 12 years old. This stems from my mom and my grandma. My grandma used to read old detective novels, and she told me one day, she was like, I stopped reading those because somebody was killed in our town. And I was just like, I'm next. So I was like, okay, that's where my paranoia stems from. That's good to know. And then my mom had all of these true crime novels in in her room, basically. And I would go in there and just look at the covers, because sometimes the covers are really not graphic, but they're just like illustrated and everything. And so you're like, ooh, that looks interesting. Not realizing that this is actually like a true crime, even though context clues would tell you that it's real. So she gave me my first book at 12, which was a terrible idea for me. And I fell in love with true crime because I was so astounded that people like this existed. And I couldn't believe it, And I talk about it sometimes, but I am a survivor of a crime on my end. And my mom's a domestic abuse survivor. And so I've always been kind of fascinated with why people hurt people they love, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought, okay, well, why does this happen? Why does somebody do this to someone that they care about? And then you learn about psychopaths, right? And you're like, oh, these people don't feel anything, so that's why it's so easy for them to, con somebody. And so that's really where it stemmed from. I can do without the gory details and things like that. I'm more involved in the why. Why does this happen? And so I decided to do the podcast. I initially wanted to start a podcast like my second show. And I was like, I don't know how I would do that. I don't know how I would start the concept of it. So I put that one on the back burner. And I thought of, okay, well, what's the next thing that I can talk about forever? And it would be true crime. And so I told my husband, I was just like, it's like I'm the president of crime, right? Because I know everything. Like, you could say something about somebody and I'll correct your facts or whatever. I'm seriously a true crime junkie. So I was like, I'm the president of this thing. And then I came up with True Crime Fan Club. And that's how it was born last year in October.
Well, congratulations. We're recording
Thank
in
you.
November, so congratulations on passing your 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I can't believe it's been a year, but the show has done really well. I'm very proud of it. It is, even though it wasn't the first concept that I wanted to launch, I'm really glad that I did, because it helped me reach a greater audience, but also establish a lot of really great relationships with other podcasters, including you. So to me, the community's been really awesome. I think we all understand as indie podcasters what it's like to kind of put yourself out there for your first episode. So I always like to encourage people and just be like, you know what? Ask me any questions. I went through it. I wish I had somebody I could just bounce ideas off of sometimes. And so I try to put myself out there and let people know they can reach out to me if they have questions about where to start or what microphones and things like that to get.
Definitely. Now, for your show, how long does it take you to put it together? How do you pick the crime that you're going to talk about? Like, what goes into it for your show?
There's a lot more planning than there was before, that's for sure. It used to just be like, here's what I have in my mind, and this is what I want to talk about. But now it's a little bit more structured. I hired a part-time researcher to help me out so that I can, because a lot of your time when you're doing true crime is spent researching, right? So just browsing through different areas to try and find certain articles or different factoids and things like that. And that takes up a lot of your time. So I had somebody come on board who basically does that for me and just sends me all the articles. So I still have to read them and go through them, make notes and all this other stuff, write the script out. But it's a lot more organized than it used to be. So the researching, writing piece on my end, like the reading of the research and writing out the script, takes about maybe 4 days. And I come out every 2 weeks. So it takes about 4 days for that to happen. Then I record. I also brought on an audio engineer to help edit the episodes because I like to try and get ahead, and I have the 2 shows now, so I really need to make the most use of, what is that? Make the most use of my time? Is that what it's?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so.
I'm like, I don't remember. I can't speak anymore. So I just wanted to better utilize my time. And so now an episode, it still takes about a week to do. So even in the quote unquote off weeks, I'm still working on the show.
And how do you pick out your crime? Like, is it just something that you think of, or you've tried to focus on maybe a lesser known one? Like, how do you come up with them? Because there's obviously many to choose from.
Yes. What I first do, we have a list going right now. Before, I used to just think of crimes in Dallas because that's kind of where I focus, is in my hometown in Dallas, Texas. Just things I'm like, oh yeah, what about this crime? Let me look into that. But we have a list going now, so it's just based off of the list. The next one is going to be one that was inspired from Mindhunter. So I wanted to do him. I was like, I got to dig into this guy because I've never heard about him. So he's going to be one of the episodes. And then listener suggestions, like my latest episode that was released on 10/30 was a listener suggestion. So if it piques my interest, I forward it on to my researcher and I say, hey, can we make an episode out of this? And she'll say, yeah, we can. And then we do it.
Awesome. That's awesome that you have a researcher. That just,
yes.
That's like, wow, just extra help.
Yeah, she's my friend from high school. I initially brought her on just to do some content editing, to like clean up the scripts a little bit, make sure they flow really well.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, yeah, I like doing that. But you know what my real jive is? I love researching. And I was like, have I got a job for you? And so she took it, thank God. But we work really well together because she knows the details I need, how I structure the episodes. And so when she sends me all the research, she makes little notes about, here, you may want to put this in this spot or that. So that really helps kind of formulate the episodes and make sure that they flow in a way that makes sense.
Well, that's awesome.
Yes, it's really very helpful.
If someone was going to check out your show, which episode do you have like a favorite episode that you would say like this is my episode that will get you hooked on True Crime Fan Club?
Yes. So let me see, the Wiley Axe murder is the one I think that is most talked about because there's such a twist in the story. It's not gory at all in terms of details. Some of my earlier episodes were, but I think I've softened up a bit on those. But the Wiley Axe murder is for sure one of the most talked about episodes, next to the Mary Turner Thompson episode, which was focused on her best-selling book called The Bigamist, where she was conned by a real life psychopath. So those two episodes, I think. And if you know Javier, right, from Pretend Radio?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you do.
Okay.
Because you've tweeted us before.
Okay, maybe.
You know him. I was kidding. He actually, okay, so plug for Pretend Radio, I guess. He does an episode, he does like a show that basically where people pretend to be somebody else, like FBI informants or undercover agents, things like that. So I lent him my Mary Turner Thompson episode because it kind of fits within his mold. And I think that I've never done that before. And it was really interesting to see people react separately to him because he's not like a true crime show. So it was really, really interesting to see a different audience kind of react to Mary's story in a different, because true crime people, were like, oh my God, that's so whoa, crazy. And then I think, and you kind of have this certain aspect where you like, oh yeah, I know what a psychopath does, blah, blah, blah. But seeing people who don't have that understanding or don't really delve into true crime react kind of how true crime junkies do to that story was really, really interesting to me.
It's always interesting to hear, like, I guess, like, perspectives outside of, like, the normal, like, true crime people listen to true crime. They don't really listen to maybe something else. And then to get that perspective is just, it's like, oh, okay.
And I was like, whoa, don't go listen to my other shows if you don't like true crime. I was like, don't listen to any other episode. That's what I kind of tell people when they first start out with the show. I'm just like, listen, skip the first like 4 or 5 episodes. Start from the latest episode. And that's kind of what I'll tell anybody who's starting a new show. Or like you've discovered a new podcast. Unless it's a serialized show where you need to go in order, start with the latest episode.
Yes,
because
exactly.
The first episode is just, you're learning the kinks. This is literally your first one. So you may make, mic noises, or there may be background noise that you didn't know how to edit out and all this stuff. So I always say, start with the latest episode, then go down so that you have an appreciation for where the podcaster is now.
Absolutely. I have one episode that I'm dying to go back and redo just because I'd pushed it out so quickly that I left it as stereo. So like one voice is in one ear and one voice is in the other ear, and I've got to fix it. Now, I told you before we started recording, I told one of my friends, I was like, oh, I'm recording with the true crime podcaster today. And she had listened to one of your episodes and really enjoyed it. And she had already said, that she's going to listen to a few more of your episodes. And she sent over some questions. So I'd like to ask you them on her behalf and for people that might be into true crime. What do you think about Mindhunter?
I really like it. It's based off of the FBI agent's or profiler's book. And it's really great. I think even if you don't really like true crime, it's just a really good show. There are some, graphic things in there because that's kind of the nature of true crime. You can't sugarcoat it really. But I think what fascinated us the most, and when I say us, I mean the true crime community, was the casting of Edmund Kemper. Like, the actor who portrays him is a spot-on Kemper, and it is freaky because if you know about Edmund Kemper, then you know that he was not very kind to the people that he murdered. It was very, very bad. He murdered his own mother, and did really terrible things after, and that was kind of his MO. But he liked to engage with people and have conversations with people because he really couldn't do that pre-prison, if that makes sense. Because he would end up killing them. So, you can't really have a conversation for a very long time if you're going to murder them. So in prison, he ended up talking to the profiler or whatever, and the videos are out there on YouTube, and you can kind of see, you're just like, wow, I kind of like Edmund, like he's nice. And then you realize what he did, and you're like, that's how he killed people because he's so unassuming and disarming. But it was really interesting. And fun factoid, which I learned after Mindhunter, was that he is narrating audiobooks.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, how does Edmund Kemper have a job reading for Audible and I don't? This makes no sense to me. Yeah, no, I found that very interesting. I think he reads, I'm joking about Audible. I think he reads books for the blind. And I found a sample of him reading one of my favorite authors back in the day, V.C. Andrews. I loved her so much. I still love her books. He read like Flowers in the Attic in the opening scenes. And I was like, oh God, no, this is terrible. I can never unhear this now. Like he has such a really smooth and buttery voice, but then you like remember his crimes and you're like, this is creepy, turning it off. So yeah, I was a huge fan of the show. And like I said, it even kind of brought people that I have never heard of, and I want to do episodes on them. I'm sure other people will do that too, but it's kind of the nature of the business. You find things you like and other shows do too, and you cover the same people. No big deal.
Yep, no big deal. Now, the other question is, what are some of your favorite or least favorite adaptations of true crime stories, whether it's like movies or TV series based on true events? If you have a favorite or a least favorite adaptation.
Sure. I think my favorite, let me see, my favorite true crime, does Narcos count? I really liked Narcos. It took some liberties here and there with both seasons, but I really like that. I think one of the least ones, what was my least favorite? I remember watching one where I was like so disappointed. I think it was Zodiac when it came out, the movie. Oh my gosh. I was just like, this is terrible. And was just like so upset with it because it just, you expect things to be done right by Hollywood, and sometimes they just miss the mark. And I was really disappointed with that movie. I don't even remember why. I just know that I remember watching it in the theaters with my mom, and we were both like, that sucked, didn't it? We're like, yep, sure did. And, maybe we have high standards. We expected more, I think. But when it's a Zodiac, it's an unsolved crime. So you kind of don't get a lot anyway for your buck. So it is what it is.
On top of True Crime Fan Club, you have also started your other project.
Yes.
Which is called We're All Just Pretending.
Mm-hmm.
And what is We're All Just Pretending for people that might not know? I know, but there's
Yes.
people that probably have not heard of it.
That's probably a very accurate statement. We're All Just Pretending is a podcast. I say that it's a mix between Dear Abby and Post Secret. So the Dear Abby piece is myself, Charlie from Insight, that's another true crime podcaster, Haley, another true crime podcaster from Murder Road Trip, Josh Hallmark from Our America. He does like so many podcasts. Our Americana playlist podcast, Karen and Ellen Letters. we do advice segments. So somebody will write in, questions either about family, friends, people who want bad advice. That's what Haley gives on purpose, not because she's bad at giving advice. She does it on purpose. And then people who want to hear drunk advice. So Josh will get drunk, not every time, and deliver some funny little quotes here and there. And then we have the secrets part. So people, you've heard it. So people will write in really kind of intimate secrets. And I get my podcaster friends to come in, read them however they feel that the person is writing them or, would say them. And we got some pretty funny ones. We get some really serious ones too, which I think is what the show is exactly how I envisioned it. You know what I mean? I wanted people to have a safe place to come and release their burdens. And sometimes you just want to be able to say it. You know how I think I watched this social experiment on YouTube like 5 or 6 years ago where people would like walk up and there was a soundproof mug and they could like whisper a secret in there. And, people chose really kind of dark secrets to share. And you realize that there are people walking around everywhere who just want to release it, right? You always hear like, I just wish I could say this out loud and then that's it. And I would be just fine with it. And people are doing that on the show. And it makes me really happy that they trust us enough because it's literally anonymous. I'm not a whiz with IP addresses, so I'm not going to go find you. It doesn't take your email address or anything like that. You just go and put a pseudonym in there, write out your secret, and then that's it. I get an email. It's completely anonymous, and that's it. And I'm really thankful for people being open with the show. It's one of the shows I'm really, really proud of, and I'm glad that I took the step out to do it because I wasn't going to do it for a while, and I think that it was the right time. It's, to me, one of the easiest shows to produce in the world. It's a lot easier than producing True Crime Fan Club, but it gives me the most joy. And sometimes I need a break, from crime and stuff like that. You talk about really sad, serious things. And then having the other show, break it up. It's really refreshing, and I'm glad that people are receptive to it.
And it comes out same every 2 weeks?
Yes. Yes, it does. Kind of. That was my second project, so it's not always like on schedule.
I understand.
It's just more like, here it is. Take it if you want it.
What's been your favorite part of doing that podcast? I almost want to just say that getting to do it with a bunch of other podcasters and getting to work with, just collaborate, because I know that like on Twitter or by email or when I have other podcast hosts come on, like there's something different about having like a normal guest on for me and then a podcast host guest, come on. And it's just that there's something there that's already like built in, and there's like a camaraderie about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The great thing is, okay, so the way it works is I just email people and I'm like, hey, give this audio file to me within a certain time frame. But it's really fun to hear the outtakes and the bloopers and things like that, where people, especially if there was one, I think, where a guy confessed to feeding his dog boogers. And now, because he's done that so many times, anytime he like touches his nose, his dog just is like, what do you have? Do you have something for me? And Chris, he hosts the Mad Scientist podcast. His raw file was so funny because he was laughing for the longest time. Because I put in there, I'm like, if you want to give a reaction or give them advice, you can do that. No big deal. And he was just like cracking up for like a solid like 2 minutes over this because he was reading it and then he would bust out laughing. And then, it was really fun to edit that piece. But it's great to hear kind of the raw audio and people's like thought process and trying to formulate the right answer. Like they kind of put a lot of like burden on themselves to give the right answer. They're like, I'm not sure, let me try something else. And then they'll go and give another piece of advice or something. And I'm like, I love that. They get an email and then they're like, okay, well, how should I, phrase this, or how should I say this? I'm going to do a couple takes. And they're like talking to me via the audio, even though it's like one-sided. And they're like, I hope you're editing this. I hope that you will take this out. And the Is This Adulting guys were so funny because they were going back and forth on these little tangents. And I'm like, you guys, I have to edit this. So when is this going to be over? So it's really fun. It's really great to see everybody's personality and concern for these strangers, kind of show. And I think it helps put them in a different light. So I have, like I said, true crime podcasters who are giving completely, either family advice, like that's what Charlie does, Haley does about advice. I think it's just a great opportunity for them to expand their repertoire.
Definitely.
And what they're doing. So I love that show. That's like my baby.
Now, for those who are listening to you and they want to find either of your shows, I guess let's start with True Crime Fan Club. What are the best places to do so?
You can find True Crime Fan Club at truecrimefanclub.com. And we are on Twitter. When I say we, I mean me, at TCFC Pod. And We're All Just Pretending is allpretendingpod.com or allpretendpod on Twitter.
Awesome. And before we wrap things up, I just want to shout out one of our mutual friends in our 90-day Fiancé. What? She'll get the joke. We are so facetious and mean to each other online, but we really actually like each other a lot. Well, I just want to shout out Melissa of the Moms and Murder Pod, who joins in on our fun 90-day Fiancé conversations. And I got to listen to her and her co-host mostly her talk about the show on a different podcast this week, and that was fun. Yes, they're funny. They're Mandy and Melissa are hilarious on their show. Their show's really lighthearted, even though they're talking about true crime. But I love Melissa. She meets my humor bone right where I need it. Don't say humor bone because she'll take it so far. So she is my personality twin. She gets me instantaneously. We kind of hit it off with the sarcasm and just being really extra online with each other, and it's been great. It's been great. We've had a great time. Awesome. Well, Lanie, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come on to our podcast, or my podcast, because it's just me. See, I do record. That too. Weird. Yep. It's always a weird, but it's just me. But I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and be my first true crime person on the show, and, just be awesome and, talk 90-Day Fiancé, because I don't get to talk about that show too often. I get the looks about it from strangers or friends, and they're like, why are you watching that show? But it's just I'm glad to. We need to get Melissa on here so we can all talk about it, because we got a lot to say. Well, I've that is in the works, because I've already talked to Melissa about it, so we'll have to get something together. That'll be funny. Awesome. Well, thank you. And everyone, go check out True Crime Fan Club and We're All Just Pretending. 2 very different shows, but I'm sure one of them will scratch an itch, hopefully. Yay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.